Hi everyone, welcome back to AFTV, welcome to the Tactical Insight Show. We've got a 3-0 win at Bournemouth to enjoy today, to break down. Welcome Graham, how are you doing my friend?
I'm doing as well as you can do when you're top of the league, mate.
Is that what we're going to do?
Well,
that?
look,
no, why not enjoy it? Who cares?
I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not getting too far ahead of myself, it's only 3 games. But just think where we were this time last year when I was doing these shows with you.
Yeah.
We were literally staring down the barrel, weren't we? 3 games played, 3 losses, no points, 9 goals conceded. This year, 3 games, 3 wins, 9 points, 9 goals scored. People will point to the opposition, quite rightly so. We did have a tough start last year, and this has been an easier start, I'll admit that. But I see a team on the rise under Arteta, and I think a fantastic performance against Bournemouth on Saturday, which we're looking to break down. Before we start today, just 2 quick bits of housekeeping. One, just want to thank the many people who literally send in the comments to us on this show. I'm really humbled by the comments from me and James for this show. And a quick shout out, I don't do shout outs, James, but a guy called Rikesh, who's a massive fan of this show. I'll give him a shout out, Rikesh, who said a question for James: do you think we should go for Leroy Sané in the transfer window?
Oh, right.
You've just done Transfer Daily.
Yeah.
You've actually addressed that. So Rikesh, watch Transfer Daily for James view on that. Yeah, looking forward to breaking down a fantastic performance against Bournemouth today.
Yeah, me too. I want to send a thanks as well, and that's to the production team, because these chairs are really comfortable. About as relaxed as Arteta must have been for that 90 minutes, because it was pretty comfortable. Although I do have some injury news to tell you about, which is to my pen. So I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, he's had some strapping. He's good to go on. Yeah, I'm very sad about it, but it's all good. So we're in. That's the important thing. Right, Bournemouth. Every game I go into, I do the whole, well, it's the Premier League and you never know what could happen. But Arsenal, I think, very much turned up with an expectation of what they should do. They did what they had to do. They did it with style. And this whole Arsenal fans don't go overboard, look at who you've beaten. Okay, well, let's look at who we've beaten. Crystal Palace away, not an easy place to go. First game of the season, if you're going to use that as to why we maybe got a slightly rusty Palace, applies to why Arsenal maybe couldn't preserve what they did in the first 30 minutes for most of the game. They then go to Liverpool and are brilliant. They then go and smash up Aston Villa, who are have some really talented players. Then you look at Leicester, James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans, who hopefully we're going to maybe find out some news on in the coming weeks. Jamie Vardy, got some really good players. Fofana's going for like 80 million to Chelsea potentially. So I don't buy this whole, but Bournemouth have a win on the board. I just don't buy this whole, easy run. Okay, but we beat them and we did it in style, and we've got 2 clean sheets out of 3 games on the board. I think we should be proud of it. Let's have a little look at the match stats and get your thoughts while we do it, Graham.
Yeah, I thought that this was a complete performance by Arsenal. I think there was, for all the points that you make, there was a definite gap, gulf in class between the 2 teams. If you look at the shots we had on the board there, we had 14 shots to their 6 on target to their 1. We totally dominate possession. But I thought offensively, we pushed them back into a back 5. They played a 3 5-2 formation, but they were, for the whole of that first half, back in a 5-3-2. I thought our positional dominance in the first half was absolutely immense. So much so that we had something like 25 touches within 25 metres to their 1 touch. So literally that first half, we just dominated the whole game. I think that they didn't press very well, Bournemouth. I think they had 2 up front, which I think Arteta addressed quite well in the way he structured the team. But ultimately, I think the significant stats there is like deep touches. 35 deep touches there, 15. We also had double the zone 14 touches, which is the area of the pitch straight outside the penalty box, and far more final third entries. And the XG might be 1.4 to 0.4, but I think our dominance overall in that first 45 minutes was immense, and we were probably worth more than 2 goals, but we were very comfortable in the game.
Well, actually, it doesn't always measure openings. It's actually the shots you got off, and I think this is one of those situations where Arsenal were totally dominant. 14 shots. It was probably a performance that merited 22 shots or whatever, but Arsenal was well away from home, being quite sensible. I also can't recall a half that Arsenal have been that dominant in the Premier League, because Bournemouth, when I say Bournemouth had nothing, and we've said that in other games, Leicester had nothing really, whatever, there's always a moment for the opposition, but in that first half they did nada, not 1 touch in our box, I don't think.
No, and I think that's something like it's the fourth game in the Premier League under Arteta in 2022 where a team hasn't had a touch in our box in the first half. I can't remember, Ramsdale never made a save. He could have played in midfield. But ultimately, for all that, I thought that Bournemouth were incredibly respectful of Arsenal. Rightly so, I think, from their point of view, they would have seen a team that have been dominant in 2 games. And I think overall, I think they were willing to sit in almost like they played the whole of the first half. They played 2 up front, they played 2 forwards, and this was a different thing for Arteta to look at this week. We played a back 3 team last week, a 3-5-1-1 with Maddison off Vardy. This week you had Moore and Billings up front in a 2.
Yeah.
And they played a very narrow midfield 3. And the idea, I think, for Bournemouth was they need to attack. They needed their wing-backs to get high to support them to get in a 5. But their wing-backs spent the whole of the first half back defending in a 5.
Yeah, and that's because of Arsenal's shape. So we're going to take it to the tactical pad and we'll try and illustrate it. So you mentioned the 3. Senesi came in. It was Jefferson Lerma, who was playing centre-back in the opening 2 games. You've got Zamora, Smith as a wing-back, so you mentioned who had a really, really tricky job on the day. Let's position where the Arsenal players were and start moving them up the pitch. So Jesus, Saka, Martinelli, but talk us through the rest.
Yeah, I think there was a subtle tweak this week from Arteta in the way positionally we build up. He likes to stretch the pitch. We know that in midfield with players out wide and 2 number 8s out wide and Partey to get maximum effect out of his positional play. But I think this time he stretched the pitch with the way he lined up out of defence. Now, so far this season we've had 2 centre-backs. We've had Gabriel Saliba in a 2, then we've had White and Zinchenko tucking into midfield with Partey. There was a definite switch in this game. We played...
So it's looked something like that before?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so what's the difference?
So the difference was this time that White was back in a 3, and then Zinchenko was tucking in next to Partey, almost like a 2.
Yeah.
So they had sort of like, I think what they wanted to do, Bournemouth, they wanted to block the pass into Partey. I think they saw Partey as somebody who can build Arsenal's play.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that that was the area they were looking to block off when Arsenal were looking to play out. But I think what Arsenal did really well in this game is Arteta, I think, noticed that quite quickly, and we switched almost like White sat back more instead of coming inverted. Now, the advantage of this, of course, is that it gives you the chance to stretch the pitch out wide. So you've got your 3 centre-backs, so when they push forward, they've got the 2 forwards pushing forward. Billing and Moore will push forward in the middle there. And then you've got your the narrow 3 midfielders. You've got Pearson, Lerma and Tavernier pushing forward into a 3. So if you look at that pitch now, James, you've got like your 2 forwards there and you've got your 3 midfielders. Now, what ideally was you want the 2 wing-backs to come up to make a 5. But as Arsenal were dominating structurally and positionally, you pushed them up. That's where they would want to be, Bournemouth, if they wanted to make any impression in the game, pushing up and being able to attack Arsenal. But Arsenal was so dominant, so positionally good, so fluid in their movement that those 2 wing-backs, you can push them straight back.
Yeah.
That's where they spent the whole of the first half, back in a 5. And now you've got this like narrow 3 midfield with 2 up there. And if you notice, instead of White tucking into midfield, he's now out on the right.
Yeah.
And I think there was a very significant move from Arsenal in this game, James, to actually... Last week we talked about how fluid interchange and the movement up high on the left-hand side. This time we moved it more onto the right-hand side. Sometimes I think what we did really well was we would have the ball on the left-hand side, the ball would be rotated and then be switched out onto the right-hand side. The advantage of White there is, if you look at it, if you can do the arrow there, he can pass straight into Saka. So if you can do the out there, or if Gabriel's got the ball out here, he can go straight to Martinelli in there. So there's immediately space in the wide areas for them to play those sort of balls if they want to. The other key offensive tweak I thought this game was the performance of Martin Odegaard. Yeah. Now Martin Odegaard, you've got him there more central.
Highlight him in yellow.
Yeah. If you can highlight him in that position. Now I think in the early games this season he's been more out on the touchline. If you can just move him over there,
of course,
to where Saka is. So I think one of the reasons why we haven't seen Saka quite so good this year, although the player's been better on the left-hand side, is I think Odegaard and Saka, who had a great partnership last year with the overlapping fullback as well, hasn't been working so well because I think Odegaard's been blocking some passing lanes. If you see White there, if he was looking to pass to Saka, Odegaard would be in his space. Now this time, I think what Odegaard did really well is he came back more central where he was last season. If you can move him back in there for me, Odegaard.
Odegaard,
yeah. So he's in there and he's driving more towards the box. So I thought in this game, instead of being part of our build-up play, which he was in the previous 2 games, it was almost like in the final third part of the pitch more, and it was reflecting the fact that he was able to score 2 goals.
We actually see that in the second goal, which we're going to break down a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple more things to touch on
Just before you go out of that, James,
go for it.
on that right-hand side, the difference this week was 45% of our attacks came down that side to 30% on the left-hand side. I thought last week we went more down the left-hand side against Leicester with the interchanging between Xhaka, Martinelli and Zinchenko. Although Zinchenko played a vital role again today, which we're going to talk about later in the show, this time we were more using the right-hand side. And also what Ben White was able to do really well, sometimes when he played the ball out wide to Saka, with that space in there, with them tucked back in a 5, he was able to drive forward and get on the outside of Saka, which he did when we created the second goal.
Yeah, I agree. There's something else I wanted to touch on, which is basically just looking at how this compares to Mikel Arteta's first ever game as Arsenal manager in the Premier League, and it was again Bournemouth away. We got them here in the 1920 season. I remember I was out in Italy watching that game. It was in December near Christmas time. So at first glance, you probably see quite a lot of changes in the shape. There's not really a lot to sort of latch onto here. But I think when I heard a lot of people say when things weren't going well for Arteta and Arsenal, what's the plan? What's the shape? What's he trying to do? I think there's always been a little bit of evidence of what he's been trying to do. We've just not been very good at it. He actually said in the All or Nothing documentary when we lost those 3 games to Brighton, Southampton and Palace, he said, I will not change. We need to be better. I'm not going to change what we're trying to do. And I think this is evident from day one. I just want to highlight a few players. Let's start with in navy blue. Start with Martin Odegaard, who I'm going to highlight here in the navy blue, sat in between Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Jesus, exactly where Mesut Ozil was. The number 10 pulling to the right. That's where he was getting, in between the 2 wingers, who we'll highlight again. There we are. And it's slightly different, but the concept's the same. They would drift the creators, the left-footed creators, drifting wide. The other players I want to talk about, and this time we'll highlight them in this dark green. Thomas Partey. Oh, I've done it in a square. Let's do it in a circle. Thomas Partey here. Lucas Torreira sitting. Again, very much in a similar position. And then Granit Xhaka, you couldn't put him in a more similar position. He's literally in the same. Now, I know last week we were talking about his evolution of his role, but ultimately, a lot of his defensive responsibilities revolve around coming deep and coming closer to that holding midfielder again and being a little bit tighter, even though he's still getting forward, he's covering a left back or whatever. The other thing I wanted to mention, let's do this in red. We'll use arrows. Your ball playing centre back, David Luiz, far higher, William Saliba as well, and then the more rugged defender, Socrates and Gabriel, a lot deeper. I think there have been patterns there that you could see from the very start under Arteta. We just weren't always good enough. Sometimes it would fall apart. Sometimes we try to find short-term solutions for these problems. Ben White, as you mentioned, this game very narrow. I remember Maitland-Niles being quite narrow in that game. So I just think there have been things that we saw from early on, and it's great to see that with his own players, it's really starting to come to fruition.
Yeah, he's always been a big advocate of controlling football matches, James. And I think that I don't think he's ever gone away from his principles. The first thing he had to do when he came to Arsenal, I think, was get a defensive shape because we were conceding far too many shots. And I think the next thing he obviously what he wants to do is have players in positions where they can recover off the ball to form a good shape to sort of be defensively solid. Then he's worked on the creative side of bringing in creative players who can sort of like deliver up high what he wants. So I think he's always been a big one for sort of like, as you pointed out in your map there, of players in certain positions and the way he wants to play the game. And I think he worked with the players he had in the Bournemouth game. There's only, I think, Saka and Xhaka left from that 11 that played that day. And gradually he's added layers to his team that's able to sort of now do more what he wants offensively. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk heat maps. We've talked about average positions. Well, we're getting it all out today because why not? Let's enjoy this win. Heat maps. We've got Odegaard Zinchenko and Ben White here on this graphic. Who do you want to take? You want Ben White, I think? I'll take Ben White. I thought Ben White had an excellent game. I thought he did in this one. And I thought that he understood his role really well in this game. And that was obviously to provide an option out wide. I mean, the flexibility in the way Arteta asks his players to play is reflecting the way that Ben White's been able to adapt to the two roles he's played this season. Be inverted when he needs to be, as he was in the first two games. And in this game, if you look at his heat map up here, he's up high a lot on that right-hand side, quite a lot, offering something up high, supporting Saka when Saka came inside, to provide the spin round the outside to get the cut back in. And also, he's back here defending in a 3, you see. So his heat map shows him predominantly all over that right-hand side, offering an outlet and also a defensive solidity if we needed to in a 3, and also in the build-up play. So yeah, a fine performance by Ben White in this game,
I thought it was brilliant seeing him get forward. We didn't really see a lot of that, but in the Leicester game, when you're thinking it must be by design. But actually, I think Arteta might have said to him, "Listen, when Saka is one-on-one with those players, they're too scared to commit to the tackle to him. Take advantage of the width that, the space that Saka's created through his movement."
Well, I think it was the space of the fact that they were very narrow.
Yeah.
So the way that with us sitting back, we were able to play round.
Yeah.
The idea, I think, what he wanted was to get our wide players one-on-one with their wing-backs. The moment you do that, you then got options of players coming into play, him being able to drive up and support Saka on the outside. I think what I've noticed from Arteta in these 3 games is the players are a lot closer together. We're squeezing the pitch up high, squeezing the pitch. Players are closer together, the distances are smaller, which means that players can play in little combinations. And we've got that combination on the left-hand side with Zinchenko, Xhaka and Martinelli, and we had the combination on the right-hand side in this game with Odegaard, White and Saka.
I'm glad you mentioned combinations, because you see Zinchenko, look at some of those touches here out on the right as well. I mean, he was going quite literally wherever he wanted, Zinchenko, and doing it brilliantly, doing it intelligently, knowing when there was a space to fill, knowing where he could have been an extra man to help out in midfield, knock a few passes together and keep ensuring that Arsenal had control of that midfield in some moments where maybe Arsenal get a little bit complacent. We're 2-0 up, this has been easy, hasn't it? Whatever. No, he kind of maintained that fluidity and consistency, at times coming left to hold the width, at times overlapping, at times playing, as you mentioned, next to Thomas Partey. So I just thought Zinchenko was superb today. It's not just his movement and how unique his use of that role is, with the help of some instruction from Arteta, I'm sure, but it's just how classy he is. One-on-one, takes a brilliant touch, and he's out. He helped Arsenal defend.
Do you know what I like about him, James? We talk about what he offers on the ball. I would say also he offers off the ball. Elite mentality. He had. He won the ball back 9 times in that game, more than any other player in the game. Wow. And he was the one leading our press. Obviously, Jesus is the one pushing up high, but he's the one going onto the wing-back, demanding the other players come up and support him in that press. Now, what I like about him, he offers us a different dimension, James. He can play left side as a left fullback. He can drift into midfield, hold his position. But I noticed in that game, we talked about it before we came on air today, he was sort of like moving right across the midfield. So if you think about the midfield 3 with Partey, Xhaka and Odegaard, right, as your 3, sometimes in that game, he would be taking Partey's place at the base, and Partey would drift slightly forward. He recognises when he needs to go to the right. He would cover on the right if White went to take a throw in, for example. He moved on to the right-hand side on a couple of occasions. So he's literally recognising where he needs to be on the pitch. He offers us that control, how we want to play, which I think everyone's recognising. Yeah. And I love his reaction to the Saliba goal. Yeah. That's been highlighted on social media. That was fantastic. Yeah, but I think he's crucial now to the way Arteta wants to play in this role.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another player who was crucial is Martin Odegaard. We're going to talk about his first goal. Well, briefly, we'll talk about his second goal, where we'll talk more around him. A lot of that first goal revolved around the work of Gabriel Jesus. And listen, we've just got some of his numbers, and I think we've really given him a lot of praise already for what an impact he's made. But as you sent through these numbers, 90% pass accuracy, 45 touches, the dribbles, the key passes, gets an assist. So unlucky not to have a goal, but he's just so wriggly and so. I mean, I look at him, I'm thinking, my God, he must be horrible to play against.
What I liked about him in this game was he offered us something up high, which he hasn't offered us in the previous 2 games, which we've been crying out for. And the ruthlessness to take it off Gabriel Jesus' foot to score the second goal.
Yeah, Martin
The first goal, he drifts inside, he runs off Lerma, and he continues his run into the box. So when Gabriel Jesus, an unbelievable take, by the way, tremendous strength to get away from the centre half and to run, and then the lovely reverse pass to slip in Martinelli. Odegaard is then on the move, making the move, a bit like we talked away Xhaka run off Tillemans last week. He ran off Lerma and got into the box, and he's there to follow up when the save is made. And then the second goal, once again, he's coming in. When the cutback, I think, is aimed for him from Ben White, but it goes to Gabriel Jesus, who has a slightly loose first touch.
Yeah.
Then he comes across to sweep it in with his left foot. I think he was superb on that right-hand side. And as I said, I think there was a difference in this game where he went back to being more on the right side, central on the right. He had been, in my eyes, more out wide right in the first two games.
Yeah.
So he's more central to combine with Saka more in this game, but it was a brilliant performance.
Well, let's look at Odegaard's numbers, because you've been touching how great he was there, 85% pass accuracy. Now, call me crazy, right? I quite like he had an 85% pass accuracy, because we always know he's safe and tidy on the ball. I like the fact that 15% of the time he gave the ball away suggests he's trying things, suggests he's trying to make things happen. He's not giving the ball away because he's sloppy, because he's messy, because he's not focused. So I don't have a problem with that. We saw Jesus' numbers a second ago. His were more impressive in terms of ball retention, but I like that from Odegaard. And as you mentioned, winning 3 out of 3 aerial duels, by the way. Well done, Martin. 3 shots, 2 goals, and I like that second goal. It was ruthless. In fact, we need to break it down on the tactical pad. Of course we do. We weren't going to go a whole show with this kind of win and 3 great goals and not break one of them down. So, talk us through this one, Graham.
Yeah, this is what I said about Ben White's role in the goal, to start with. He's got the ball on the right-hand side here, and he's going to feed it out to Saka on the right-hand side here, as we're going to build this play out. You can see it goes out to Saka. Now, we bypassed their narrow midfield. They weren't pressing. Now, Saka's got one-on-one there with the wing-back, Zamura. Now, what White does, he recognises now there's a chance to go on the overlap with Odegaard, as you can see, is peeled inside. So he's going to come on the outside of Saka. Saka's got the ball now. There was a bit of debate, if you stop it there, whether he was onside. Luckily for us, he was just slightly onside.
Should we see if he's onside in the little graphic I made?
Why not?
Well, let's have a little look. Was he on? Because I wasn't really paying much attention. He's miles on in mine.
Maybe we need you doing VAR.
Maybe.
But ultimately, he gets in, he cuts it back. I think the cutback is for Odegaard. But it bypasses Odegaard, and now you see Gabriel Jesus coming in. He takes the ball here, and as he has a slightly loose touch, Odegaard's there to sweep it in left-footed into the corner.
If it had made Odegaard on first attempt from White, that would have been very similar to the goal we scored against Watford last year, where Saka or Cedric, might have been Cedric, combined with Odegaard, and he kind of opened his body up, and he definitely likes to shoot from that angle. Goal against Everton as well, in that kind of inside area of the penalty.
And if you look here, James, if you look at what we got around the penalty box, we've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 6 players literally there around the penalty box. Obviously, there are 5 lanes there and White on the overlap. Plenty of offensive options when the ball comes across. Cut for the cutback. This is what Arteta wants. This is the positional play up high Arteta wants to play. Wants to stretch the pitch with the midfield and get your 5 lanes up high. So when the ball comes across, we've got people to attack it.
That's it.
And that's what happened.
And listen, I know I recreate these goals, guys, but none of that's by accident. I'm not just focusing on Saka, White, Odegaard, and just chucking everyone else wherever they want. I'm following very closely exactly where the players go. Granit Xhaka made that run to the back post in case White goes across goal. The Jesus and Odegaard runs are very deliberate. We've seen the cutback. That's something we've seen from day one again under Arteta. Some early goals with the cutback there. And Martinelli was getting to the edge of the area as well. So they're all coached. They're all getting to different areas. And as you mentioned, the 5 lanes of attack. When White does have the ball, there you got them. Saka and Martinelli wide. Jesus and Xhaka is powering through to get in the box.
We've stretched the pitch, haven't we, as well?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Also, with the 2 people in midfield, the 2 players in midfield, and the 3 centre halves up high, everybody is closer together, James. We've got that pitch literally condensed now down to, the pitch. I can remember the Arsenal a few years ago. There were massive gaps between our attack and our defence. And that's one thing Arteta's done since he's been manager. Dealt with us positionally and structurally and improved the team.
Now I want to ask you a question, Graham, away from all this now. Pre-season. I know we always say, momentum's good in that, but we start to change our mind about how important pre-season is.
Well, we already have. We talked about it last week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We had a great pre-season. If you think back to last season pre-season, we were terrible.
Yeah.
We were playing in Scotland, poor performances against Hibs and Rangers, I believe. And we didn't get the business done. We've done that this season, and we've taken the good pre-season form into the early fixtures.
Yeah, well, I wanted to present some research I've been doing. So I had a little look at, not obviously including this season, because we've only played 3 Premier League games. And before anyone says, "Oh, you're jinxing" and whatever, let me land here. But pre-season win percentage versus first 5 Premier League games win percentage. over the last 5 seasons. Of course, there's nothing to show for the 2021 season, 1 game against Milton Keynes. So Arsenal didn't really have a pre-season. Last year, actually, you know what, let's go back to 16-17. We won 80% of our pre-season games. We won 60%, so that's 3 out of 5 of the first Premier League games that year. We started quite badly, actually. We had Liverpool at home. That was when we lost 4-3. Mane tore us apart. 17-18 season, 50% of our pre-season games won, with only 2 out of the first 3 Premier League games won that year. Then we go to Unai Emery's first campaign, 60% of pre-season games won, 60% of the first 5 Premier League games. Remember, we lost to City and Chelsea in the opening 2, went on to beat, I think, Cardiff, Newcastle and someone else, maybe West Ham, I can't remember. After that, 19-20 season, 42% win percentage in pre-season and 40% win percentage. That came from actually the first 2 games, and then we go on and draw and lose, I think, in the next 3, and then we didn't win a single game in pre-season last year. Okay, only 4 games, but it culminated in no wins in the first 3 games, and then beating Norwich and Burnley 1-0, both of them. So they were hardly convincing either. Now look, we've had a great pre-season. We've 100% record at the moment, if I'm adding that. 2 games. I don't take Fulham and Villa lightly at all. But I think the point is, no matter what happens, we're going to come out of that first 3 games with at least 3 wins out of the first 5, which is a turnaround in... Listen, okay, that would be mirroring some of the other seasons, but mostly it's a better start than we're used to. So the point I'm trying to make is it's not completely indicative of everything, as we've seen. We didn't win a single pre-season game, and actually were able to then find a bit of momentum fairly quickly after that terrible start last season. So this season, anything could still happen, but the evidence suggests you're prepared, you have a good pre-season, it will carry through, especially in that first 5 games or so of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the importance of we had a great pre-season, shouldn't be underestimated. We've taken that form, as you said, into our first 3 games, hopefully into the first 5 games. You know, so yeah, definitely those stats show if you don't have a great pre-season, it does affect the form as you go into the season. So it's a good point you make.
Yeah, I agree. Now, you are slightly concerned about one thing. As great as everything is, 3 wins on the bounce, 9 goals, 9 points, all that, top of the league. No one else has 100% win percentage. It's great. But there is something slightly worried about. What is it?
I think I've noticed that we tend to dominate first half of games, and we've been ahead in all those games at half time. But there's a definite drop off in the second half in so many stats, in possession, goals scored, goals conceded, expected goals, expected threat, and also in shots we're conceding. Yeah. So, and you're going to put the numbers up in a minute. So I'm just a little bit worried that we lose control in these games, and at the moment these are against teams like Palace, Leicester and Bournemouth. So if we were playing stronger teams, they could punish you, whereas these teams don't. So I've put together then, I sent you some of these numbers of our possession in the first half compared to the second half. Against Palace, as you see there, we had 56% possession in the first half, only 32 in the second. Against Leicester, 55 to 44. Bournemouth, high possession in the first half, 74, only 44 in the second. Now,
that's a big drop.
It is a big drop. It is a big drop. And obviously the goals and the goals conceded there, as you say, favour the first half over the second. So, it's not a worry when you're winning games because, you're not going to... You could argue that all teams have spells in games. I noticed on Saturday when Bournemouth switched their formation at the start of the second half, they went more to a back 4, tried to match us up a bit in midfield. I thought they had more joy against us and they had a good spell. Now that could be because the team's mentality is we're winning games, we can just sort of like sit back more. But I don't want to see us sit back. Yeah. I think we need to try and control the game by passing the ball around. I know that's what Arteta wants to do, and he did talk about in his post-match interview after the game on Saturday, there were some things that they need to change and work on, particularly in the second half. And I think he was referring to this, the fact that there is a drop-off in our performance in the second half of games. And as I say, I mean, the expected threat, the expected goals is against us in those numbers as well, which you're not showing there, but I've noticed that as well. So there is a drop-off. And I think it could be the fact that we're a young team. You could argue that it's a young bunch who are learning. But also, I think the one thing I think Arteta wants the team to do is when we're ahead in games, to control the football, not be so aggressive with the ball, to pass it more, not drop back. Because we talked about how Bournemouth dropped back in the first half and allowed us to dominate positionally. We do the same in second half, albeit we've got the lead, and we allowed them to come back into the game. We allowed Leicester to come back into the game with 2 goals in the second half. Palace put us under the cosh in the second half, and then we got a second goal. So that is a slight worry. I know people say, oh, you're being picky, be grateful you won your first 3 games. I'm just saying that sometimes when you're winning, that's the time to look at things you're not doing right. And,
well, Arteta's addressing everything you just said. He said in the post-match after Palace, and then again after this game, he said, listen, there's still a lot to work on, still a lot. It wasn't perfect, far from it. He was asked that very question, was that the perfect away performance? He went, well, no, not really. So I think he'd 100% agree with you on that. And he's also clearly not, resting on his laurels. What did he say in the press conference when asked, does this start change his kind of approach to the transfer window? We know we've been linked to some very exciting players in literally the last couple of hours. And he said, no, we still need firepower. I think he still is adamant that there needs to be more to Arsenal's game in terms of control and scoring goals or whatever, despite what's been a great start and despite what's been a clear improvement on last season as well. I do want to offer just a slight, other way of looking at it, because I'm with you, but I'll just bring up this graphic. And an interesting stat, which I was having a look at, I had to go and have a look at what minute every single Arsenal goal was scored in the Premier League last year. So that was fun for me at 7 a.m. this morning. In the 2021-22 season, 24% of Arsenal's league goals came before the 23rd minute of the game. So far, 4 of the 9 goals, that's 44%. Have come in the first quarter of matches. So Arsenal have been taking advantage of their fast starts.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because we have criticised the team in the past of not starting fast. So, I'm happy that we're starting fast and we're dominating teams at the start of games. I just want us to sort of retain that control in games. We mentioned the Palace game. We only had control for about 30 minutes of the first half. They then took over. We mentioned the Leicester game last week where we dominated for 55 minutes and they had a spell. But Bournemouth, again, second half in this game, they came back as in the second half. I'd just like to see us have a bit more control in the games, particularly at the start of the second half. We seem to almost like the start of the second half, we've done well to get the lead. It's almost like we want to sit back. And when you sit back, you invite pressure. So that's something I think the team needs to address, James.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we're going to end up with some roundup stats. Take it away.
Yeah, very quickly, James. Closing stats for this week. First time since 2004 that Arsenal have won their opening 3 games. First time since 1993 that they have kept clean sheets in their opening 2 away games. And the first time since December 2016 they've been top of the table after multiple games. Wow. Arsenal are the first top flight side to win their opening 3 league games the season after losing their opening 3 games the previous season, since Everton in 1937-38 season and 38-39 season. Alex Zinchenko has now finished on the winning side in 82.3% of his Premier League appearances, 65 out of 79, the best figure of any player with 50 plus games in the competition. Gabriel Jesus has now been involved in more Premier League goals than any other player so far this season, 2 goals and 3 assists. Arsenal made 397 passes in the first half v Bournemouth, the most they have made in any game under Mikel Arteta.
Wow. Those are some great stats, and I want to just a very quick shout out. I won't go into it, but William Saliba. I know we've taken time to talk about him in the other 2 games. Sometimes we need to share. Yeah, we all love the chant. And sometimes we need to share the love on this show between all the players, especially when they're playing this well. We
haven't really talked about him today, have we?
But that's exactly what I mean.
I suppose, and he was the man of the match. So a bit of a disservice.
Was he for you?
He was my man of the match.
Okay,
I know the TV gave it to Jesus, but I thought Saliba. 100% accuracy with 75 out of 75 passes completed.
Yeah, that's
a superb goal with his left foot. Again, credit to Nicolas Jova, because they said that they've been working on that in training all week. It came from a set piece and on that right hand side.
I wonder whether Arteta was being a bit tongue-in-cheek.
I thought William Saliba, a fantastic performance. We haven't given him credit, but we gave him credit last week. But he, for me, was my man of the match.
Yeah, and I'm so happy.
And he's got his own song now.
He's got his own song that everyone loves. It's probably infuriating for others, but we love it. Yeah, it's infectious. See, I didn't want to get caught into it, but I'm caught into it. Saliba. We will love it. I'm sure we can find a bottle of tequila or something that we can enjoy for the rest of the day. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Thank you to Graham for all your hard work, as always. And again, I want to reiterate what we said at the beginning of the show. A big thank you to everyone for all the comments, all the love in the comment section, all the support, everything you guys say as well when you see us out and about. We really, really appreciate it. So yeah, really enjoyed today's. If you want to get some shirts to support the boys as well, I've got the Gabbies on my t-shirt. I know you've got a couple as well. There's lots from Martinelli to Smith Rowe, Saka shirts, Thierry Henry as well. Go check out all the merch. The link is in the description below. Go grab your own as well. We're going to leave it there. Lots more content to come a little bit later and some transfer stuff, which is big. We've got to talk about it. So we'll see you a little bit later. Many thanks.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.